This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. Garrett is here, even though we both forgot that Pierre was going to be gone this week. And Garrett's wearing a Yankees hat, and as if my sports life isn't bad enough, I have you just flaunting the Yankees in front of me.
Well, I mean, I felt like it needed to be done.
Okay. I'm gonna take a minute and complain about how bad things are. And I have to do this because my wife has no perspective.
Okay.
So she was on the cruise, right? She's still on the cruise. Mm-hmm. And that Kansas loss to Houston was like a total gut punch. They had it won about 4 times and lost it. And mostly because Bill Self, sometimes you can fall in love with a player because of their work ethic.
Right, yeah.
And he absolutely loves DeJuan Harris.
Well, he's been there for like 12 years, it seems.
Yeah. And you know my philosophy on guys who are there a long time.
Yeah.
And especially if you're Kansas. Kansas, I know you want to build continuity and have all these things, and that's ideal. But if DeJuan Harris was any good, he'd be playing professional basketball.
Like 2 years ago.
Like 2 years, even if it was in Greece or somewhere, he's still, I don't know, he's making good money at Kansas. But, that's a thing that Kansas fans are dealing with, is that DeJuan Harris is over the hill for a college basketball player. Something that normally doesn't happen, right? And so I, telling her, and she's very upset about this loss, and, they see this as some sort of harbinger of things. And I'm like, I told her on text, I'm like, Amanda, I understand your pain. FSU is 2-10. The Red Sox, I don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I know that they get real close. I like a couple things they've done. It looks like they're starting to come out of the little hole, right?
Yeah.
But they still need to do a couple more things, and they keep giving these excuses about competitive balance tax and all this, and they owe us all a make-up for trading Mookie Betts for literal oxygen. That's basically what their starting catcher, Connor Wong, came over in that deal, but that's, neither here nor there. And to top it all off, the Cowboys are as directionless as a franchise as there is in sports, and I will get into later in this show why that is, and the press conference the introductory press conference for Brian Schottenheimer. I actually feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him because as much as they pump him up,
you can't pump that up.
It's not, it was.
I was thinking about this. I was talking with Dan about this last night. Do you think this is the breaking point to where fans will actually not buy as many tickets? Are we there, or is there still that luster and that draw and people who haven't had the opportunity that will always naturally want to go to the games? Or are we to a point where the fans are actually going to start letting, last night, last year in Oxnard, right? A lot of people weren't going out there. Do you think we see that translate into the actual on the field games in Dallas or Arlington? Whatever?
I don't know. That's going to have to be the thing, but we'll get into that. I think it would be rude of us to not start off on the fact that, right now is a very interesting time in sports, in that in college football, we saw Travis Hunter, maybe a unicorn when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be – it's going to be years before someone else does something like that, right? It's been –
Well, you your 100-year theory?
He's probably 40, because that's that's almost like a Bo Jackson thing. In the same sport, or Dion. It's like Bo, Dion, it's kind of that kind of athlete. Well, we're in the generational talent, and I know everybody can hate on Mahomes. We've got Ohtani, doing ridiculous, crazy things. There are several players in women's basketball, I'll tell you, that are better than any of the women's basketball players maybe ever.
Yeah.
And that's just now getting light shown upon it. I'm not even talking about Caitlin Clark alone in this. I'm talking about Why do I sound like a jerk?
Angel Reese.
No, the one from Vegas. That's the actual best player in the league.
Plum? Kelsey Plum?
Yeah. Who was that? Yeah, Asia Wilson. Asia Wilson. Yeah, the actual best player in the league. Right.
Okay.
Now. Yeah, Asia Wilson. Like all of that. Like it's so many. Like Kelsey. Like all those people. You know, if you watch the Olympics this year, it was a veritable who's who of the best that we maybe have ever been at that sport, and how it is internationally too. We're at kind of a unique time where you look around, there are unique talents that don't come up in it's kind of generational. It does remind me of Michael Jordan, Bo Jackson, Wayne Gretzky,
That's
Dion.
what I'm saying. Like you had Connor
all at
Bedard.
that same time. Like all of those kind of things going on, right? All at the same time. And then the last of that era was probably Tiger Woods. And then we don't really have that in golf right now because golf is a little chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great golfers out there. Scotty Scheffler, but
they're not on the same page.
But there's not a Tiger,
right?
Out there right now. Before Tiger, between Jack Nicklaus and Tiger,
it was a tight field.
It was there just wasn't one. There's some great guys, in there, but it wasn't the greats,
right?
Well, right now, the generation gap between the GOAT quarterback and the new GOAT quarterback,
not very much.
It's like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, they played each other in one of these games, as a matter of fact. This will be my 14th or 15th Super Bowl, right? And one of them, the AFC team outside of the Steelers was the first one, the Ravens were in there, and the Bengals were in there. And then I think all the other ones have been the Chiefs and the Patriots since I've been doing it.
I believe Dennis Dodd had something out there earlier. It was the last 12 were either Mahomes or Brady coming out of the AFC, the AFC, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's and Burrow with one.
Right.
Burrow had one. And that, and then that one has spurred on this era, that one and then losing to Brady has spurred on this ridiculous run of the last 3 years where, lost to Burrow, didn't make it, made it, lost to Brady, now going on 3 in a row. It's insane. And I know there's a lot of Chiefs haters out there. Rightfully so, because it's getting really annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It's really annoying that the worst that they're going to do is lose in the AFC Championship game. It would be nice to see somebody else in the AFC figure this out. And the Bills are right there. I just don't know what. Is there a devil went down to Georgia situation that Clark Hunt did and Johnny, you're rising up your bow and play your fiddle hard. And that's how the Chiefs kept doing this, is that he won at the crossroads.
But it's not at this point, it's not even Mahomes. If you watched that game last night, there were a lot of times where he was making terrible decisions. Their defense is badass.
Yeah, their defense is unbelievable. And no one will hire Steve Smith. You should just hire him to get him away. Hey, New Orleans, you have an open job. Maybe that's who they're waiting for.
It could be.
Maybe that's who they're waiting for.
It might be.
New Orleans, I know that you have a lot of really qualified candidates, and I would love to see Mike McCarthy get that job and do well for spite. But really, the league needs you to hire Steve Spagnuolo. They need you to. This is something that you're not only doing for yourself, but you're doing for the other 31 teams.
Right, yeah.
30 teams. You and the other 30 teams, this is something that you can do that no one else has been smart enough to do, because the last time he was a head coach, it didn't work out well. Well, he's just been dealing with the best defense in the league for 4 years now.
Yeah.
So maybe, maybe create a situation where they actually have to go, oh, okay, now we've got to really shake things up. Hiring Matt Nagy or Eric Bieniemy away doesn't change anything because Andy Reid calls the plays.
Right.
So until Andy Reid retires or Steve Spagnuolo leaves, there's nothing that's going to change in the strategic level of that team. And they do great in the draft and free agency.
Yeah,
they
getting Worthy was ridiculous.
They know exactly how to supplement what they have. And Mahomes is so good that even on a down year for most of this year, all he needs is one drive at the end of the game because the defense keeps him close.
Yeah.
And so we're like, as much as we may hate watching it, we do have to admit that we are witnessing something amazing right now.
Well, I don't like. I'm not to the point with this with the Chiefs run that I got to with the Patriots, where the Patriots were just obnoxious. I don't know if it's maybe Andy Reid's more likable. He's funny. The same thing with Mahomes. You see him all over your TV. Every time you turn on the damn TV, you see somebody from the Chiefs there. Maybe it's that they're a little more likable. But I'm not to the point where I just hate like watching them. I also don't like the fact that this is a rematch again. Like I wish somebody from the NFC could come up and shake things up as well. But if I'm looking at that situation, like I don't necessarily think I would want to take another head coaching job. If I could sit back and just be the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs and rack up Super Bowls and get paid millions, I think I would stay put for a while if I was in that situation, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I just it's ridiculous. And the Eagles are always like they're the best run team in the NFC right now. They had the thing that's driving me nuts as a Cowboys fan and a Cowboys observer and a Cowboys podcaster and a person who's covered this team is, and look, there they are right behind me. Buy some stuff. But I should maybe take that ad and switch it out for a team that wins.
Washington's up there. He'll come up.
Yeah. Yes, Washington. There's a Washington version of that very same one. But the bottom line is, like, the Eagles, they had a collapse at the end of last year. And the Cowboys, when those things happen, oh, well, we had so many injuries, or we had this, we had that, we had that. Like, there's always something that keeps them from, like, really fixing the overall problem and going, okay, well, we got to do this differently.
Right.
Because if it's an injury, or if it's this, or if it's Zeke's suspension, like all these things give them an out for, well, if those 2 games that he was suspended, or if it was that, all those things that are just excuses. Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie said, no, there's no excuses. We're paying a lot of money. We're going to get everybody signed. We're going to make sure we have this team. We've drafted really well. We believe our team is good. How do we make it better? And they went and had an unbelievable draft and then supplemented their team with, look, I'll tell them, the Zach Bond thing is just diamond in the rough. That could have happened to a lot of teams.
Right.
But it did happen to the Eagles. You know why it did happen to the Eagles and Zach Bond, who's, an all-pro candidate after just being kind of a special teamer in New Orleans? It happened because of the culture that you can take a guy who has the right kind of motor and maybe hasn't been pointed in the right direction and point him in that right direction. That's why Zach Bond works out at the Eagles, where he didn't work out at the Saints.
Right.
And had the Giants signed Zach Bond, he would still be the same guy he was a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's because the Eagles organization makes players better all the time, and then they also draft rookies to play right away. They don't draft rookies to let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, at least especially early on. If you're in the first, I would say 100 picks for the Eagles, they expect you to play a lot.
They should, as
Your
much money as
rookie
you're
year.
getting paid.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
If you're in the first 100 picks, they expect you to contribute a lot. And then they have the developmental guys, which they have 3 guys on offense that were outstanding college playmakers. And you saw one of them yesterday, although he ran out of gas on that one long run. And Will Shipley.
God, he ran out of gas.
But yeah, Will Shipley, Johnny Wilson from FSU, and Aniyah Smith from A&M. Like, once those guys kind of get going, and because they have really huge potential to be excellent NFL players. But they also don't draft a guy who's raw like those 3 are and then immediately go like, oh, well, you got to be like the guy.
Right, yeah.
And, okay, well, what is this offense? They looked and said, okay, what can we go out there and get that's going to take us over the top? Oh, why don't we go sign Saquon Barkley? And it took from a team that could not finish the year last year and kept running up against the wall, because part of the thing is that they fell into the trap of anybody can be a running back. Well, Kenneth Gainwell's a really good player, but he's a really good player who's a third down specialty type back.
Right.
Saquon Barkley
Every down.
is an all-world player. And they decided, like, okay, we're going to go get this dude, and he's going to take us over the top. And if they beat the Chiefs, it will because the Chiefs finally couldn't stop somebody, and that person was Saquon Barkley. As a matter of fact, if you look at, look, James Cook had a pretty decent little, couple runs yesterday, and he's not living in the same stratosphere as Saquon Barkley.
Not even close.
So people can hate all they want, and listen, there's nothing I hate more than the Eagles or any other team in the NFC East as a Cowboys fan. But dapping them up because they're just running circles around their division and the league. And I also, I think it's kind of weird. Josh Harris has another sports franchise he owns in Philly. So I'm not totally I wouldn't be totally surprised to see him go, well, like, I've been listening to this crap all this time. And he grew up a Washington fan. Like, I've been listening to all this stuff all this time about the Eagles, being an owner in Philly. So let's do it like they do it. Like, let's get a GM and an owner. Like, let's get a GM who knows his stuff, and they did. And so that's why you saw. Now, look, the Commanders got absolutely they got dog walked, boat raced, wood chippered, and then all that got put back together, reformed into something, and then they did it in reverse. That was bad.
It was terrible. And after watching how Philly was able to control them, and then once that second game got started, you could, from my perspective, and I'm a Washington fan, you could tell that those other three teams were on a different level than Washington was. Like, they had been there, they knew what it was just like night and day watching them. But at the same time, nothing Washington did, and that loss should make any of the fans feel bad about where you're at. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a hell of a season. I liked seeing Harris. I liked seeing everybody actually come down and support the team. And you could just tell the whole vibe and the culture has shifted there. And you're right. I think that having that experience in Philly and knowing what it takes to do things properly, you have Magic Johnson in there as well with all the success that he's had with every franchise that he's got a hand in the part of working with. Yeah, Washington's going to be fine. They definitely need to fix their secondary. That's suspect outside of Lattimore when he's playing Mike Evans, but I feel really good about what they were able to do this year and the future that they could build. It's just crazy because they have no real elite playmakers on this team. Terry McLaurin's good, but he's not a star. They have no stars.
I think he's a star.
I don't know if he's a star. I think he's on the cusp of being a star, but I don't think he's a real alpha yet. He can be. But they're doing this with a lot of worker bees, man, and it's really been fun to watch what they were able to do in one season.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really quite awesome, for them, and there's nowhere to go but up, in my opinion, for them. I know there's not. It's sports; you never know. But I've become very aware of how teams that do things right, or how just organizations in general and life do things right. I'm going to call it, because I love them so much, even though they're not a sponsor, although they totally need to be, because no one will sell them like I can, but Discount Tire.
Okay.
I'm going to call this the Discount Tire model.
Okay.
Whatever it takes to make the customer happy. And here's the other thing. It's not even they're not doing ridiculous things. They're so far out ahead of any problem or complaint that you might have that you can't complain, because if there's a problem, they've already solved it before it happens. So they know, okay, we're sorry. We got, turns out this tire was defective. Front of the line, we got you covered. It'll be done today. Here you go. And you don't have to oh, hey, it's cold, my tires are low. Come on by, we'll fill them up for free for you. You may have to wait in line for a minute, but you don't have to get out and swipe your credit card at the stupid machine at the gas station, which whatever greedy SOB did
pay
that.
for air.
Pay for air and water.
Yeah.
Used to be a thing you just got because you paid for the thing that makes the whole world go. whose price that is, is always a complaint for people.
Down with the world, Paul. We know how that goes. Destroy it all.
Yeah. So, but Discount Tire, and again, this is not a commercial, but they do it right. You know who Discount Tires it in the NFL? The Chiefs and the Eagles.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't? The Cowboys. The Cowboys are they're a big, gigantic franchise that everybody knows. I think you know what? I'll tell you this. And I use this company. They're my provider for home internet and my cell phone and everything. But when it comes to customer service, they're for shit. And that's AT&T.
Oh, they're terrible.
They're terrible. Like, I'm surprised they don't use, ethnic slurs when you call up on the phone.
It's coming, I'm sure. That's going to be their next policy to put in.
Yeah. Oh, if the person asks, why their cable isn't working, just pull out this list of random things to say. And because, it's just, and it's awful for their employees. We had a guy fixing our internet, and he said, hey, why don't you call, and I'll call at the same time. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Don't you have, a bat phone?
Yeah, you should have a direct line.
You have a direct line? No, we have to call the same number you call.
Yeah, that's smart.
What? For your employees? So, but what they're trying to do is get rid of the people who work for them and have some sort of robot do everything. And that's not good. So, but Discount Tire, again, they run your sports franchise how Discount Tire runs theirs. Be out ahead of every possible problem. And then when something occurs or unexpected arises, then you because you're so good at all the other stuff, you'll figure out that problem.
Yep.
And when we'll talk about the Cowboys in the next segment, and then we'll finish up talking about why I should have been a defensive coordinator. But if you were doing things right, that when something happens, like happened to the Cowboys a week ago, when Mike McCarthy's nah.
Which I respect the hell out of him for. I'm so glad he did
what?
that. It's so funny.
I like him so much more now than I did when he was the coach of the Cowboys, because he's no,
not playing that.
No. And I think you've heard me say it a million times, I thought they set him up for failure this year anyway.
They did.
So I was never mad at McCarthy. I was never
no Cowboys fans should.
I used 12-5 3 years in a row, and every year they lost, I was like, this is a roster problem, not a strategy problem.
They're going to be begging for McCarthy in a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, if Brian Schottenheimer's great, I hope so. But again, I feel bad for Brian Schottenheimer because he has stepped into something that, it might be impossible. Right? And so the Cowboys were caught completely flat-footed by Mike McCarthy. And when you listen to their press conference today and go through it, you can tell they were we don't have a plan. Jerry also had the balls to make a joke about how much he pays coaches when he's one of the guys who pays them the least. He's I know they all make a lot of money. And look, $5 million, $4 million is a ton of money for anybody. Except for the fact that, you're the most valuable sports franchise and you don't pay your coaches. And, this, do the Chiefs, do you think the Chiefs give a 4-pound hunky shit? This is how mad I am about this. How much money they pay Andy Reid?
No.
You know why? He's worth every damn penny. Every single one.
Yep.
My gosh. I don't know. We'll talk about this in a second. There was an air quotes scenario that I can't. I can't even. This is the triple option. Back with more after this.
You might ask yourself what functional mushrooms are good for. Whether it's lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, shiitake, reishi, they all serve a purpose.
You have ones for neurological health, ones for sleeping and gut health and all these different areas. They pack a powerful punch.
Functional mushrooms are, of the millions of mushrooms and fungi out there, the ones that we can actually ingest and benefit from as humans.
Like all adaptogens, they kind of adapt to what you need at the time that you need them.
We don't even really know that we're suffering. We just don't quite feel right. That's where these adaptogens come in and really start to close the gap and really start getting us closer to how we want to feel.
Functional mushrooms have definitely re-energized me and helped me face each day with a new vigor for life.
Learn ways that functional mushrooms can help you. Go to getumble.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross. You know, I went to the dentist this morning, no cavities. Very, very, very proud of my good, no cavity streak I got going, Garrett.
Should be.
Oh, very, very proud of it. When the hygienist is like, man, these just look great. I'm like, well, thank you.
They'd probably punch me if I walked in.
Yeah. I'll tell you though. So I went and then, they cleaned your teeth and I hadn't eaten. And so then I ate later because my mouth felt so clean. Mm-hmm. And then I brushed my teeth again because I wanted to at least try to achieve that. And I just took a sip of my drink here, and everything still tastes like toothpaste. And I think that's because I'm extra
fresh
today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah. So, many people are terrified of the dentist.
I don't know why.
I am not, because
I'm not either.
I try to stay ahead of the game. And I also know that when your teeth hurt, there's only one guy who can fix it.
Yeah.
And it's the dentist my dentist, Dr. Morgan, BYU grad, big BYU fan. So we had some stuff sitting around here forever in a box we didn't open. And then from BYU Sports Nation, because it was addressed to one of our owners. And finally, we just told him, hey, we're opening this and taking it.
Yep.
And he's like, what? Sure, whatever, don't care. So Emery absconded with a sweatshirt, but everything else I took to Dr. Morgan today. So he was not there, which is always good. The dentist is always, the hygienist can hype you up.
Yeah.
And the dentist come in and, he just kind of tamps down expectations. You're like, this is good, this is good. I would like to get a look at this, though.
Right.
And you're like, oh, man, I'm having a good day until you walked in here. No. But he's also, he took over the practice from my previous dentist, but he's very young. And the first time he came in, I was like, where's the doctor? What What are you like?
One of them, like a child walking in to
Yeah,
take care
I was
of you.
like, it's just, am I in a
Howser?
Doogie? Yes, it's like, am I in a Doogie situation? Like, if I'm in a Doogie situation, like, I'm kind of for it. But it's one of the things you should tell, like, you know, I'm sure if, like, in the real, you know, the real world of Doogie Howser, if Doogie Howser was in the real world, you would have to go in and, like,
Prep
the
everybody.
other doctor would be like, hey, by the way, the doctor coming in here to see you is 15 years old.
Right.
He's the best doctor here. We promise you that. Because, you know, if not, they've been like, well, I mean, he might be great, but, like, you know, I've got a mole on my bum, and I don't really want a 14-year-old like looking at it and laughing as he's
Plucking it.
trying to lance it, you know. So anyway, the mole in the ass of the NFL currently is the Dallas Cowboys.
Nice transition.
Yeah, thank you. And a press conference was held today to announce the new coach, Brian Schottenheimer, who said, I was curious. He's been in the league for a long time, and he's never taken a head coach opportunity. Like, he's never been offered one, and as far as I know, until recently, he'd not interviewed for one, which is not as uncommon as you would think. Sometimes coaches just go through and they don't want to be head coaches. You know, they like where they're at, and he said he felt he wasn't ready, and now he feels he does. He is. He's got to be ready for a lot of things here, in that there's a lot of sunshine pumping that goes on with the Cowboys, and they really love the smell of their cologne. And the other thing I think that he needs to realize is something all of us do, is the Jones family today showed how
Out of touch?
yes, thank you, out of touch they are
with reality?
Stephen Jones, and we'll have this on the main show. So we don't, Emery's getting it ready now. But Todd Archer, who was on the show last week, asked, why is Brian Schottenheimer the guy to end this 29-year drought? And Stephen Jones air quoted this and said, this so-called drought that people say that we're in.
So-called?
It's not so-called.
That's a fact.
It's 29 years of you not winning a Super Bowl. So, like, just to give you perspective, you bought the team in 89 was your first year owning the team, you know. So 1989. In 1992, 1993, and 1995, you won the Super Bowls, okay? And went to the NFC Championship game all 4 of those years. So in those 4 years, 3 years after buying it, you won your first Super Bowl. Okay. That was great. And then, you guys won 3 and 4. Awesome. Amazing.
Then the rules changed.
Yeah. Yes. Then the rules changed. Specifically, I think, because of them. More than anything. Because of them and the 49ers. They were well, I mean, these teams, and Jimmy Johnson was so good. Plan B, free agency, trades, the draft. Jimmy was so good at all that stuff. He had beaten everybody to the punch on the new rules. He was ahead of it. The difference between Jimmy Johnson and Bill Belichick is that Jimmy Johnson hit a point in his life where he'd accomplished everything he wanted to.
Right.
And he just wanted to fish and work 1 day a week, which is what he does.
That's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. So, anyway, that's Jimmy's life. He decided that's where he's going to be. He and Jerry, clashed. He tried to go do it in Miami to spite Jerry, but then Jimmy kind of, I think, wisely realized, my heart's not in it like it was. When I was winning it, with the Hurricanes and with the Cowboys, I was in my, I was young and hungry, and I was I'm just out for blood. I've got tons of money. I never have to work again. I really like living in the Keys. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And he's made more money in the time since then just working for Fox.
And much less stress.
And selling
so much.
And selling wiener pills.
Yeah.
You remember that little phase?
Yeah, he's definitely got to get a little side hustle going on there. Nothing wrong with that. Give him a little side hustle.
At least have a respectable one, though.
Yeah.
That's he was in an infomercial, a late night infomercial with Ron Jeremy.
Oh yeah, that's wrong. That's the wrong one, buddy.
Yeah.
You're better than that.
And I remember I watched the whole thing. Because I had to see it. I was awake. It was on. It was Ron Jeremy and Jimmy Johnson selling pills to make your dong grow. And I was like, well, I got to see this through. I got to find out what the end of this show is. Because first of all, Ron Jeremy's like, look, and I don't need this. But if you want to be like me,
Yeah.
then you buy this. And to hear that is like, well, then why are you here? And no, I don't really want to be like you. And also, again, if this really existed, this problem would be eradicated off the face of the earth. Do you know how fast impotency was gone? Once they had that pill? If you have that problem now, you're just being stubborn.
Yep.
There's a million things you can do. In fact, there's so much television space spent on it. Hey, you having trouble effing? No problem. Here's a billion things that we can do. Don't like pills? There's creams. You don't like creams? You can take a shot. But the pill is a little pill. Nobody will even notice you have them.
Yep.
Yeah. They're easy to hide. So you can pretend to be virile all you want. Problem solved. How many other health problems still exist that had been met with that same kind of vigor? None. So I know this. If that got solved, once they made that discovery, if that and baldness, if those two things, come on. But I digress. The reason I'm talking about big dicks is that I really do. I have a lot of respect for the Jones family. I think what they've done is amazing. They're very nice people, actually, but they're in this F you, we're going to do what we want phase because we know better than you. And usually the thing is, if you know better than someone,
you do better.
You do better. You don't have to tell them. Your accomplishments speak for themselves.
Yeah.
You can't all be Ron Swanson at the hardware store and walk up and go, I know more than you. Can I help you? I know more than you.
I know more than you.
But yeah, there's no there's not anywhere in life other than in these kind of things where I can do that. And the thing is that even the most knowledgeable person in our world, we still barely know more than your regular guy, right? In the grand scheme of things. Because there's some,
there's only so much you can do.
Look, there's some of us that are elites. It's like Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen and me, those guys that are elites that I live in that stratosphere with them. We talk about it, the three of us, all the time.
All the time.
We have cigars and brandy and just kind of talk about how these other idiots do this job. Because again, we're the same.
Coming for you, Urban Meyer.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't need, he doesn't need to keep saying, oh, it was a huge risk when I bought the Cowboys. We know what we're doing. Here's why we know what we're doing.
It's called gaslighting.
No, you knew what you were doing, but you don't now. You guys bought a great car right at the end of the horse and buggy times. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of advancement since you bought your really awesome car. Everybody else has had a bunch of different cars. You guys are still kind of driving the same one. Yep. And the other thing I think they need to, the one thing that because of the spite that Jerry had for Jimmy for so long, he'll never let it go, is the structure that worked for your organization was to have a guy like Jimmy Johnson. That's what worked for you, was to have somebody like Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick, those guys who were so ahead of the game That's where, like I said, the Eagles and the Chiefs are right now. The Eagles are so ahead of the game when it comes to talent and roster building that, when they have it down, you're like they did last year. It just takes a quick little, but it didn't take 3 years to figure it out. It took one offseason to go, okay, this has got to change. This has got to change. We got to get younger here. We got to do this here. Let's move this guy over here. Let's make sure that we do this. Let's make a couple things. And then because their organization runs so well, it worked out for them. But if you're not going to admit what the fundamental problem is, then you're never going to change. And the case in point remains that the best structure for the Cowboys as an organization, as a business, was that model. Now, does that model work for everybody? No. I mean, there's no one way to do this. But there's better ways to do it for certain people and personalities, which is why Jimmy Johnson also knew this when he was there. I mean, very famously, cut a player and then was asked what happened if Emmitt Smith did it. He's like, look, yeah, you have to admit there's different rules for different people. Now, everybody has a limit, right? If Emmitt was doing that every day and not producing, then it's different.
Right.
But if you just got to the team and you fell asleep in a meeting, I don't care if you have a condition or not, you should have walked up and been like, Coach, look, here's the thing. Because that was the John Roper said, look, when the lights go out, I have a condition. I just
narcolepsy or something?
Yeah, I just get tired and I fall asleep. If you would have been like, look, I cannot, in a dark room, I've got 10 minutes of being awake. So I just need to let you know that I'm not being disrespectful. I literally have a problem. But again, not telling your bosses that got you cut.
Right.
If that was even true. Again, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but if it's really true, if you have a medical condition that is going to affect
then you need to let people know.
Yeah. I've worked with people who have had autoimmune diseases that are look, I'm not trying to just take 10 breaks a day, but if I have to get up and leave, it's because of this. And then you're like, okay, all right. Well, now that I know, all you have to do is just give me the signal and I'll be like, cool. I'm not giving you special treatment compared to anybody else. I'm just letting you live your life and find the way to be productive the best way. And so Jimmy knew that. Jimmy knew that rule existed. And I do think that there is benefit to treating everybody the same, but there's also a drawback to it because not everybody should be treated the same. Some people need different leadership styles. Some people, you have to coach different people different ways all the way across the board. And the people who are most successful know this and are also able to make sure that when people notice that you do different things, explain to those people well, here's why it's different for you. I don't have to worry about you as much. So I've got to do this for them because they're really good at this and we really are benefiting from this person's talent. So we're going to make a little bit of a concession here, but don't worry, I've got him on the back end here.
Yeah.
There's not make no mistake who's in charge here.
You're going to be held accountable.
Yeah, you're held accountable. It's just I have to work around certain things, but if I walk in here and I just yell at everybody and Garrett responds to yelling because he's like, okay, F that guy, I'm going to do it for spite. Emery decides, I'm not going to do that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid enough. And then Andrew's somewhere in the middle. Well, what are we getting done?
Nothing.
So I have to deal with each personality a different way. And so that's what the great coaches do. And not to say that the Cowboys haven't had coaches that have done that. But part of the thing was with Wade Phillips, Bill Parcells got that. I don't think Wade Phillips did on the Wade Phillips is just too much of everybody's buddy.
Right, yeah.
And so and he even kind of knew that about himself, right? And then Jason Garrett Jason Garrett had favorites on that team. I mean, Romo and Witten, they were all buddies. They were tight. They were kind of together. I don't think it did. He kind of knew that, but also, he just wasn't innovating
right
on the same kind of pace that they needed to be when the rest of the teams around them were. But at the end of it all is just really poor roster building from the Joneses. And they do very good about getting stars in the draft. And they have this kind of they're really great at finding stars in the draft early on and diamonds in the rough. The problem is lately they're not very good at the in-between.
Is that contract structure, or is that how much of that is?
I don't know. Like
Development. Well, also
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of it too is like I think a lot of the players they've drafted as of late, or the players that they drafted that they expected to emerge as stars have, and nothing. I think by their accounts that they did anything wrong, but it was injuries. Like you've had so many players, whether it was Sean Lee or Van Der Esch or other guys that you brought through, that they just could constantly getting banged up, and I don't think that's necessarily on anybody's. I don't think that really falls on the front office or anything. That's kind of bad luck. But at the same time, if you're the biggest, if I think you just got to learn how to handle a room if you're Jerry Jones and finally listen to people and put those that can elevate your weaknesses around you. And when you have a narcissistic behavior, you just don't accept that and you won't do it. And unfortunately, everything's going to unravel around you. And that's where they're at.
Yeah. No, you're right, Garrett. You're right. I mean, just they're in a weird spot. All right, just to close it out here, because I've got a couple top fives we need to record.
Yep.
And Jim Knowles is now making $3.1 million a year as a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And James Franklin is out of ideas, I guess. So he just said, well, what did Ryan Day do to get over the hump? And Jim Knowles was that.
But
I think here's the thing. I think we forget, like, remember how bad their defense was
terrible.
early on?
Yeah.
And then Jim Knowles came along, and now it's legit. But Penn State's defense is already really good.
Thank you. That's the thing.
So,
like, if you would have went and got an offensive coordinator, or if you would have
And they
gotten
did that
somebody,
last year.
no, I know, but if you would have gotten somebody who can get elite playmaking ability out of your wide receivers, or somebody who can make a splash like that, I think what helped Ohio State while their defense was struggling before they brought Knowles over, but being able to get somebody like Chip Kelly to come in and take it to the next level offensively is what really made them successful. And like you said, I mean, Penn State hasn't had a problem defensively. That's really been their bread and butter. It's how can you get this offense to match the production of Ohio State or Oregon that you're now going to have to face or compete with to be in playoff contention. Like, your defense is going to be fine. You're going to have to really fix the offense. I understand getting it and him wanting to go back home because he's a Philly guy and wants to be in Pennsylvania and everything, but at the same time, I don't know how much better this actually makes Penn State. Like, I mean, I don't think this changes the trajectory of them being a championship team. I think they were kind of that. I mean, they showed they could be that defensively without Knowles. So that's kind of where I'm with it.
yeah. No, I'm there with you, man. Like, it's yeah, they needed – and, like, maybe it's the combination of Knowles and Andy Kolnicki. They did lose Manny Diaz, you know, and then they lost Tom Allen, like, all those things. Like, so, all right, like, go get Jim Knowles.
It's a hell
like,
of a hire.
Oh, it's a big time hire.
Especially, like, I think it's more important, like, not necessarily what it can do for Penn State, but the dent that it can put in Ohio State. That could actually be the difference in you know, taking that away from Ohio State and hindering them to help Penn State get over the hump. I mean, that's kind of how you got to look at it, the silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to do it for us today. We've got Patrick Mahomes, trainer. Bobby Stroop. We also have Newey Scruggs, and we're hoping on another guest or two. But we've got a lot to talk about today on the show, especially when it comes to the Super Bowl. NFL will be like 1 week from today. Will be just balls deep in gumbo, baby.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sorry I used that term, but that's basically how I feel about it.
That's how I feel, too.
It's going to be great. Like, I will come back smelling of etouffee. That's what it'll be. Charbroiled oysters at Drago's, night one. Such a wonderful place. I mean, honestly, I could just go to New Orleans, not see anything, and go to 7 restaurants in a week.
You're good.
I'm good.
That's all you got.
Like, what did you do? Like, I had the best fried chicken I've ever had at Willie Mae Scotch House. You know, I went to Couchon and had some catfish atchafalaya that was unbelievable. We're going, like, I made the reservation for Toof's Meadery.
Oh.
So good. So good. So next week, when you see me, I mean, you'll be surprised if I don't have just a hurricane in my hand. Now, I can't. Actually, the last time I was The last time I was there,
I remember when y'all got back. I remember the looks when y'all got back.
I mean, everybody but me had COVID.
Yeah.
But I also, I mean, there's going to be like when they do the autopsy of my body, like hopefully 50 years from now when I've expired, they're going to look at like one spot of my liver and they're going to be like, that's Sugar Bowl 2022. Like that's what that is right there. For sure. That's what that is. Like it's just like it's going to like, oh, yeah. No, that little spot, it smells like hurricanes and I had absinthe at the Absinthe House on that trip. And ooh, buddy. That stuff tastes terrible and they're not playing around. You can't have more than 2.
No, you got to be safe with that.
Yeah. I think we should, like, I'm going to let Emery make that mistake while we're there, just so we can say he did it. But I'm going to tell you, man, woo! I was like walking back to the hotel going, I don't think that Earth is real. There are no planets. We're just all floating in space, man. I wonder what would happen. You know, could we all fly if we just tried at the same time? You know, that kind of thought.
Could be, maybe. It's worth a shot.
Like, here's the thing. Not just one person at once. Like, all of us together. Those are the kind of thoughts. Like, everybody in New Orleans, let's all try to fly. Then we'll be able to do it. The problem is we're being selfish, and I'm just trying to fly and not sharing it with you. That was my brain.
All right, Peter Pan.
That was my brain that night. Like, I remember, man, it's like, you are not. I'm like, you have no pushback from me. I did it. It's done. I don't have to, like, I'm not going to be like, hey, more of that stuff, please. It was nice not feeling my feet from the knees down, but knowing that they were there, but not knowing they were there. That's what my brain was doing. All right, we will see you in an hour. This is the Triple Option. Please like and subscribe. And please check out Catalina's Cowboys Corner later on today. I will have some stuff up, some reaction to the Brian Schottenheimer press conference. There will be foul language. That is all. See you in an hour.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience.